It was 11 of the night in a secondary road of the Black Forest in Germany. Klaus, an experienced driver, trusted in his old sedan of Bavarian engineering. But there was a silent problem. His headlights, once brilliant, now had that patina yellowish and opaque, similar to a human cataract. Klaus thought that he saw enough, until a sharp curve appeared from nowhere. The lumens that his headlights projected did not reach to the 30 meters of security necessary. The light dispersed in a stain blurry and weak in place of cutting the darkness like a scalpel. Klaus braked to depth, saving himself by millimeters from ending in a ditch. That night he understood that you are destroying your headlights much before they get yellow. The aesthetic deception is the most dangerous trap. Many drivers see their headlights shine under the light of the sun and assume that they are operative, but the reality optical is different. What you see is a phenomenon of chaotic refraction. The manufacturers of polycarbonate, like those that provide to the big German brands, install a protective layer against ultraviolet rays of barely some microns of thickness. Once this layer fails, the plastic remains naked before the molecular degradation. Today we go to break down the fatal errors that you commit daily and how the German method of diagnosis can save your life before the following curve be really invisible. Number 20. The myth of the toothpaste. If you search in any internet forum how to solve the problem of the opaque headlights, the number 20 of our list will be, unfortunately, the most common recommendation. The toothpaste. It seems the perfect trick, it is cheap, you have it at home, and the immediate results are visually impacting. However, from the perspective of the German engineering of materials, applying toothpaste in a headlight is an act of technical vandalism. The toothpaste is designed to clean the dental enamel, which is one of the hardest substances of the human body, and for it utilizes microabrasives like the silica or the calcium carbonate. The problem is that the headlight of your car is not of glass, like in the vehicles of the years 80s, but of polycarbonate, a thermoplastic polymer extremely resistant to the impacts but very sensitive to the chemical and mechanical abrasion. When rubbing toothpaste, you are creating thousands of micro grooves in the surface. Yes, you eliminate the yellowish layer of superficial oxidation, and the headlight seems clean, but you have left the plastic with an alarming microscopic porosity. You have destroyed the original factory sealing. In Germany, the experts warn that the toothpaste acts like an exfoliant that leaves the plastic in raw flesh. Without a layer of posterior sealing, those microgrooves will fill of dirt, industrial contaminants, and, what is worse, will allow that the ultraviolet rays penetrate deeply in the molecular structure of the polycarbonate. The result? In less than 3 weeks, the headlight will return to be opaque, but this time the degradation will be internal and much more difficult to reverse. You are exchanging an aesthetic benefit of 7 days for the permanent destruction of the optical transparency of your vehicle. It is the first step towards the night blindness. Number 19. The danger of the mosquito repellent. The number 19 is perhaps the most terrifying method that has become viral in the social networks. The trick consists in spraying mosquito repellent that contains DEET over the headlight and pass a cloth. The transformation is instant. A whitish headlight becomes transparent like the glass in seconds. But what they do not tell you is that what you are witnessing is not a cleaning, but a chemical reaction of fusion. The DEET is a solvent so potent that literally melts the surface of the polycarbonate. Imagine that you try to fix a crack in a wax candle, melting all the surface of the candle so that it remains smooth. That is exactly what the repellent does. The solvent dissolves the superior layer of the plastic and redistributes it, filling the pores. However, upon doing this, you change the chemical composition of the plastic. The polycarbonate becomes brittle, loses its elasticity, and most grave becomes prone to the structural micro-fissures. In the precision workshops in Stuttgart, the use of repellent is considered the kiss of death for an optic. Once that the chemical evaporates, the plastic remains extremely weakened. Additionally, the oily residue of the repellent attracts the road dust, which embeds in the still soft plastic, creating a natural sandpaper that will destroy the headlight in a matter of days. Worse still, if the spray touches the rubber gaskets that seal the headlight, it will degrade them, allowing the entry of humidity. What started like a trick of 10 seconds will end costing you the complete replacement of the optical unit, which in modern cars with LED technology can ascend to thousands of euros. It is a chemical trap from which there is no easy return. Number 18. Diagnosis of mechanical cataracts. Before applying any recovery technique, the German methodology demands a rigorous diagnosis, which is our number 18. Not all opaque headlights have the same disease. The experts divide the damage in two categories: external oxidation and internal degradation. The most common error of the occidental drivers is to start to sand without knowing if the problem is on the outside or on the inside of the headlight. If the damage is internal, you could sand until the plastic disappears and the headlight would continue seeing itself cloudy. To realize a diagnosis of precision, use the test of the water transparency. Wet the headlight with clean water. If while the headlight is wet, it is seen perfectly transparent and recovers its brilliance, congratulations, the damage is purely superficial and external. It is about burned UV lacquer that can be restored. However, if upon wetting it the headlight continues seeing itself whitish, yellowish, or you see small lines that seem internal cracks, crazing, you are before an internal degradation. This last is usually caused by the use of bulbs of bad quality or of greater wattage than what the projector supports, what cooks the polycarbonate from inside towards outside. Also, it can be due to a failure in the ventilation channels, allowing that the constant humidity degrades the internal coating. To understand this is vital because it saves you hours of useless work. A German master never begins a restoration without evaluating the depth of the trauma. If the cataracts are internal, the treatment is surgical and requires opening the optic, something that we will see in the phase 2. The clarity begins with the diagnostic honesty. Number 17, the magnifying glass effect of the cheap varnish. Many economic restoration kits include a spray of transparent varnish to seal the headlight after the sanding. This is the number 17 of our list and one of the greatest culprits of the headlights ruining themselves permanently. The polycarbonate and the hardware store varnishes have coefficients of thermal expansion totally different. When the engine heats up and the sun hits the headlight, the plastic expands. If the varnish is not of elastic automotive grade, it will crack microscopically. The real danger of the cheap varnish is the magnifying glass effect. These products usually yellow very fast due to that they do not have high-quality UV inhibitors. After 3 months, the varnish becomes a yellowish and hard crust that is 10 times more difficult to remove than the original oxidation. Additionally, if the application is not perfect, the varnish creates an irregular surface that refracts the light in incorrect angles. In place of projecting a defined beam of light towards the road, the headlight generates a diffuse glow that dazzles the drivers that come from the front and does not illuminate the asphalt. In Germany, the use of lacquers of a single component, 1K for headlights, is prohibited. Only coatings of 2 components, 2K with chemical hardener, are accepted, or preferably vapor polymerization. The varnish of low quality acts like a barrier that traps the heat inside the headlight, accelerating the degradation of the underlying plastic. It is like putting dark and scratched sunglasses to your car. If you are going to seal, the quality of the chemical must be superior to that of the plastic itself, or you will be condemning your night vision to a slow and yellowish death. Number 16, the technique of the wet sanding multidirectional. The number 16 is the base over which all the German optics are built, the technique of the wet sanding multidirectional. The majority of the people sand in circles, thinking that so they cover more area. Fatal error. The circular sanding creates patterns of refraction that the Polish never will be able to eliminate totally. The German method dictates a pattern of crossed straight lines. If you start sanding in a horizontal way with grain 800, the following pass with grain 1200 must be strictly vertical. Why do we do this? Because upon changing direction, you can see exactly when you have eliminated the scratches of the previous step. If you see a horizontal scratch while you sand in vertical, you know that you have not yet finished. The water is the most important element here. It acts like a lubricant that avoids that the polycarbonate overheats and melts by friction. A plastic burned by sandpaper is almost impossible to recover because it changes color permanently to a milky white. The process must be a ladder of fineness. We start with an aggressive grain to eliminate the dead lacquer, and we finish with a grain 3000 or 5000 that leaves the plastic with an appearance of frosted glass but extremely soft to the touch. It is a labor of Zen patience. Each step prepares the way for the following. If you jump from a grain 800 to 2000 directly, you will leave deep grooves that will trap the light and reduce the reach of your headlights. In the workshops of Munich, this process is realized with a lateral inspection light to detect any imperfection. You are not only sanding, you are sculpting the clarity. Number 15. Use of ferric decontaminants in optics. We arrive to the number 15, a step that the 90% of the drivers ignores, the ferric decontamination. Before that, the sun oxidizes the lacquer, small hot metallic particles coming from the brake pads and from the industrial pollution embed in the polycarbonate. These particles act like nuclei of oxidation. If you sand the headlight without removing them first, you will be dragging microscopic metal through all the surface, creating deep scratches and focuses of future corrosion. The German method recommends the use of a ferric decontaminant with color indicator, pH neutral. Upon spraying it over the dry headlight, the liquid reacts with the iron and becomes purple. It is impressive to see how a headlight that seemed only a bit dirty starts to bleed purple color. This product dissolves the embedded metal without damaging the plastic. Once that the metal has gone, the surface is really ready to be treated. To skip this step is like trying to paint a wall over rusty nails. The decontamination ensures that the final finish be crystalline and that no microscopic dark points remain that could expand under the new lacquer. It is the difference between an amateur work and a restoration of exhibition level. Remember, in the detail is the security. A headlight free of metallic contamination is a headlight that projects light without interferences. Number 14, the secret of the isopropyl alcohol at 70%. The number 14 is the key of the adherence. Many processes of restoration fail because the final sealing detaches after a few months. This occurs because residues of oils, waxes, or even the own lubricant of the sandpaper remain in the headlight. The German technicians utilize isopropyl alcohol diluted at 70% to realize a deep chemical cleaning before polishing or sealing. Why at 70% and not at 99%? The water in the mixture of the 70% delays the evaporation of the alcohol, allowing that this has more time of contact with the contaminants to dissolve them. Additionally, the pure alcohol can be too aggressive with certain sensitive plastics, causing that they become brittle. The isopropyl alcohol eliminates any trace of grease from your fingers or chemical residues that would prevent that the sealant joins molecularly to the polycarbonate. This step is the point of no return. Once that you clean with isopropyl, you must not return to touch the headlight with bare hands. The natural grease of the skin is sufficient to create a point of failure in the UV sealing. It is a discipline of operating room applied to the automobile. Upon finishing the cleaning, the headlight must have a uniform matte appearance. If you see spots or zones where the alcohol opens as if there were oil, you must clean again. Only a chemically pure surface can guarantee that your work lasts years in place of weeks. Number 13. Neutral pH soap versus aggressive degreasers. The number 13 addresses the environment of the headlight. A restoration does not occur in the vacuum. The headlights are surrounded of paint, plastic moldings, and rubber seals. A huge error is to use kitchen degreasers or aggressive chemicals to clean the area. These products usually have a very alkaline pH that dries the sealing rubbers of the headlight, provoking that they crack and allow the entry of humidity, which will cause the dreaded internal fogging. The German protocol demands the use of soap with neutral pH and much water. The objective is to eliminate the dirt without eliminating the natural oils of the rubber seals and without leaving residues that could react with the polycarbonate. Additionally, the aggressive degreasers can leave permanent white marks in the black plastics that surround the optic, ruining the aesthetics of the vehicle. Washing the area with neutral soap ensures that there are no unwanted chemical reactions during the sanding. Additionally, the soap acts like a cleaning indicator. If the foam disappears fast, there are still contaminants. A meticulous cleaning of the edges of the headlight is vital because it is there where the dirt usually hides that later stains the sandpaper and scratches the plastic. Treat the rubber seals with the same respect as the plastic. A transparent headlight serves of nothing if the water enters in its interior by a gasket dried by cheap chemicals. Number 12. The error of the high-speed polisher. We arrive to one of the most critical points for those who look for speed: the use of electric machinery. The number 12 is the error of the high-speed polisher. The polycarbonate has a relatively low melting point. If you use a rotary polisher at too many revolutions, the friction will generate an intense heat in a localized point. In a matter of seconds, the plastic will pass from being warm to melting itself. When the polycarbonate burns by friction, a phenomenon called thermal burn is produced, which manifests as a milky white spot that penetrates several millimeters in the material. This is irreparable. To avoid it, the Germans prefer orbital polishers of double action, or failing that, an energetic but controlled manual polishing. The key is the constant movement and not to exert too much pressure. If you use machine, the speed must be minimum and the polishing pad must be always humid with the compound. Never leave the machine in a single place. The touch is your best sensor. If you touch the headlight and it is hot to the point of bothering you, stop immediately. An overheated headlight also can suffer optical deformations, creating waves in the plastic that will distort the beam of light. The speed is enemy of the clarity. In the restoration of headlights, less speed always means more transparency and security. Number 11, the truth about the acetone vaporization. The number 11 comes with a technique that has revolutionized the workshops, the thermal cup or polymer vaporization, commonly confused with pure acetone. This method utilizes a cup that heats a special liquid whose vapors are passed over the recently sanded headlight. The result is magical. The matte headlight becomes crystalline instantly upon contact with the vapor. However, there is a hidden truth. Many cheap kits use pure acetone, which is poison for the polycarbonate in the long term. The acetone breaks the polymeric chains, making that the plastic becomes extremely brittle. In Germany, only the vaporization systems that utilize specific liquid polymer for headlights are allowed, which deposits a real protective layer while smoothing the surface. The risk of this technique is the inhalation of toxic vapors and the inflammability. It must be done in a controlled environment and with professional mask. Additionally, if the previous sanding is not perfect until grain 3000, the vapor will not do miracles. All the scratches will be seen under the brilliance. Well executed, this is the finish most similar to that of factory. Badly executed with incorrect chemicals, it is a death sentence for your headlights in less than 6 months. It is the thin line between the advanced technology and the chemical negligence. If you believe that the sanding and the basic cleaning were the end of the road, you are very wrong. You have just learned to diagnose and prepare the surface without destroying it, but now comes the true secret of the German engineering. Now we go to enter in the optical surgery. You will discover how to realize a real polymerization that lasts 10 years, how to armor your headlights with physical protection films, PPF, that resist impacts of stones at high speed, and the most important, you will learn the secret technique to clean the interior of the lens without having to unglue the glass of the headlight. If you want that your car not only passes the technical inspection, but that it illuminates like a vehicle recently out from the dealership, prepare yourself. What comes following is what differentiates an amateur from a master of the illumination. Are you ready for the definitive armor? Number 10, sealing by polymerization of polycarbonate vapor. In the workshops of a high precision in Stuttgart, the spray varnish has passed to history. The current gold standard is the number 10, the polymerization by vapor. This process does not add a layer of paint over the plastic. What it does is to reconstruct the surface at molecular level. After a perfect sanding until grain 3000, the headlight remains with a silky matte appearance. It is in this moment when the vaporization cup enters into play. The polymerizing liquid, upon heating, releases a dense vapor that, upon touching the cold polycarbonate, melts the micro scratches of the sanding and deposits a new layer of liquid polycarbonate resin that solidifies instantly. The advantage of this method over any other is the uniformity. As it is a gas, the one that deposits the material, there are no brush marks, nor orange peel, nor drops dripping. The finish is identical to that of a piece recently out from the factory mold. However, the polymerization requires a firm hand and a constant pass speed. If you stay too much time in a point, the vapor can overheat the plastic and create an optical distortion. It is a dance between the heat and the polymer that returns to the headlight its original surface tension, closing all the pores and creating a hermetic barrier against the oxidation. Number 9, application of ceramic coating 9 hours. If the polymer vapor is the reconstruction, the number 9 is the invisible chemical defense. The ceramic coating 9H, based in silicon dioxide, creates a crystalline network structure over the surface of the headlight. Unlike a wax that is washed with 3 or 4 rains, the ceramic joins by means of covalent bonds to the polycarbonate. This means that it becomes an integral part of the external layer of the headlight. The hardness 9H, based in the pencil scale, provides a superior resistance against the micro scratches caused by the washing and the sand of the road. But its greatest benefit is its extreme UV filter and its hydrophobic properties. The water and the dirt simply cannot grab themselves to the headlight. They slip before leaving lime spots or mineral deposits. To apply it with success after the polymerization, the headlight must be at a controlled temperature and free of any trace of grease. It is the molecular shield that avoids that the sun returns to yellow the plastic, maintaining the transparency for years under the most severe climatic conditions. Number 8. The use of film PPF paint protection film with UV filter. We arrive to the definitive physical armor, the number 8. By very hard that a ceramic be, it cannot stop a stone projected at 100 km/h in the highway. Here is where the PPF, paint protection film, enters into action. This material is a high-resistance thermoplastic polyurethane that has self-healing properties. If a stone hits the headlight and marks the film, the heat of the sun makes that the material recovers its original form, eliminating the mark. The modern PPF for headlights includes UV rays inhibitors that protect the polycarbonate from the sun, but also act like an impacts buffer. To install PPF requires a technique of wet placement, utilizing a soapy solution and a rubber spatula to eliminate all the air bubbles. It is, essentially, putting a protection screen of military grade to your optics. In countries with crude winters and much salt in the roads, the PPF is not an option. It is a necessity to avoid that the headlight erodes and becomes opaque by the constant bombardment of residues. Number 7. Polishing technique with aluminum oxide compounds. For those that prefer the traditional mechanical finish, the number 7 is the polishing technique with aluminum oxide. Unlike the supermarket polishes, the German professional compounds utilize decreasing microabrasives. These aluminum oxide grains break during the polishing process. They start large to eliminate sanding scratches, and they finish being nanometric particles that give the mirror finish. The key here is to avoid the holograms, those circular marks that are seen under the light of the sun. To achieve it, a polisher of double action, orbital, must be utilized that imitates the movement of the hand but at a constant speed. The aluminum oxide is preferred over the silicone because it generates less heat, reducing the risk of burning the polycarbonate. A good technician knows that the polishing does not end when the headlight shines, but when, upon cleaning with isopropyl alcohol, the surface continues being perfect. If the brilliance goes with the alcohol, it means that the polish had fillers, oils that cover the scratches, and the work is badly done. Number 6. Restoration of the ventilation channels of the headlight. The number 6 is the maintenance of the breathing of the optic. A headlight is not a unit sealed at vacuum. It has small rubber elbows or membranes, Gore-Tex, that allow that the hot air escapes and the cold air enters. If these channels get obstructed with mud, dust or spiderwebs, the humidity stays trapped inside. Upon turning on the headlight, the heat evaporates that humidity and, upon turning it off, it condenses in the internal glass, creating that aspect of fogged headlight. To restore these channels implies to locate them in the posterior part of the housing and clean them with compressed air at low pressure or a soft brush. Sometimes the internal membrane has expired and must be replaced. A common error is to think that the headlight has a leak and seal all the holes with silicone. This is the worst that you can do, since it guarantees that the headlight condenses for the rest of its useful life. A correct airflow is what maintains the interior of the optic dry and the electronic components, like the xenon ballasts or LED drivers, safe from the corrosion. The German engineering does not leave anything to chance, and the ventilation channels are the perfect example of function over form. These small ducts, often protected by rubber caps in form of L, are the lungs of the headlight. When we restore the external surface, the headlight generates a clarity that allows that the infrared rays of the sun heat the internal air with greater efficiency. If the channels are obstructed by the dust of the sanding or by years of pollution, the differential of pressure will not be able to balance itself. The result is devastating. The humid air stays trapped and, upon cooling abruptly after turning off the lights, it condenses in the internal face of the polycarbonate, ruining your visual work in a matter of minutes. For a professional cleaning, it does not suffice to blow air. You must remove the rubber hoods and submerge them in a degreasing solution, ensuring yourself that the internal labyrinth of the elbow be free of spider webs or sediments. If your headlight utilizes Gore-Tex membranes, inspect them with a magnifying glass. If they present cracks or are saturated of dirt, the headlight will not be able to exhale. A trick of advanced workshop is to place bags of silica gel, desiccant, held with a thread inside the housing during 24 hours after the restoration to absorb even the last molecule of humidity before sealing definitively the clean channels. This attention to the detail is what separates a headlight that shines from one that really functions under any climate. Number 5. Substitution of bulbs for high-performance halogens. Of nothing serves to have a perfect glass if the source of light is weak. The number 5 consists in maximizing the optical flow. With the time, the halogen bulbs lose intensity due to the evaporation of the tungsten filament, which is deposited in the interior of the glass of the bulb, darkening it. After restoring the headlight, it is the ideal moment to install bulbs of high performance, like the Osram Nightbreaker or Philips Racing Vision. These bulbs do not have more wattage, they continue being of 55 watts to not burn the headlight, but they utilize a mixture of gases, like the xenon, and a finer and more precise filament that produces a whiter light and a longer beam. Upon combining a restored polycarbonate with a bulb of high performance, the reach of the night vision can increase up to 40 meters. It is an economic update that changes radically the driving experience, allowing you to react much before any obstacle. Many drivers commit the error of installing illegal LED or xenon kits in projectors designed for halogens, creating a parasitic glow that blinds to the others. The German method of precision prefers to optimize the existing technology. The high-performance halogen bulbs, like those that utilize mixtures of krypton or xenon gas at high pressure, are designed so that the filament be more compact and emits a whiter light. Upon having a recently polymerized headlight, the transparency is maximum, what allows that the design of the reflector projects the beam exactly where the engineers planned it, without shadows nor dark spots. It is crucial to understand the concept of luminous depreciation. A common halogen bulb loses up to 20% of its brilliance after only 2 years of use, although it seems to turn on normally. Upon substituting them, never touch the glass with bare fingers. The grease of the skin creates a heat point that can make that the quartz glass explodes or blackens prematurely. Utilize latex gloves and ensure yourself that the retention spring be firmly seated. This small investment, combined with your optical restoration, guarantees that the flow of useful lumens over the asphalt be up to 50% superior to the one that you had before starting the process, transforming the night driving from a torture to a pleasure. Number 4. The adjustment of height and drift, headlight alignment. The number 4 is a matter of courtesy and legal security. After any intervention in the headlights, especially if you have changed bulbs or disassembled the optic, the light beam will have decalibrated itself. A headlight too high will dazzle the heavy traffic and the small cars, while one too low will leave you without visual field. The alignment is realized by means of 2 adjustment screws situated behind the optic, one for the height, vertical, and another for the drift, horizontal. The home method consists in placing the car at 5 meters of a white wall and mark the cut line. The light must fall approximately 1% towards down. If the center of the headlight is at 70 from the floor, at 5 meters from the wall the light must be at about 66 centimeters. However, the ideal is to go to a workshop that disposes of an optical beam setter to ensure that the angle of inclination is exact according to the regulations of your country. The alignment of headlights is the final signature of a successful restoration. In Germany, a beam of light badly aligned is reason of immediate fine. After having left the plastic like new, the luminous power is so high that any deviation of barely 1 degree translates in meters of visibility lost or in a driver dazzled in the contrary lane. The vertical adjustment screw controls the inclination. Each car has a percentage of fall engraved in the housing. This means that for each meter that the car advances, the light beam must go down 1 centimeter. For an adjustment of precision at home, the fuel tank must be at the half and there must be someone seated in the seat of the driver to simulate the real weight of march. If the car has electric regulation of height from the interior, ensure yourself that it be in the position 0. Mark the center of each headlight with a cross of tape in a wall at 5 meters of distance. The cut of the light must situate itself slightly by below that mark and have a break towards up in the right side, for countries that drive by the right, to illuminate the traffic signs and the pedestrians. This millimetric adjustment is what guarantees that your new luminous power be legal, safe, and extremely effective. Number 3. Sealing of joints with automotive-grade silicone. If during your diagnosis you detected that water enters, not only condensation, but visible drops, the number 3 is your solution. Often, the original glue, butyl, that joins the transparent glass with the black housing dries out and cracks. Do not try to seal it with bathroom silicone. The acetic acid of the domestic silicone will corrode the internal reflectors of the headlight in weeks. You must utilize neutral silicone of automotive grade or, better still, specific butyl cord for headlights. The process implies cleaning perfectly the external joint and apply a fine and uniform cord. If the leak is grave, it can be necessary to bake the headlight at 80 degrees centigrade to soften the old sealant, separate the glass, clean, and return to seal. It is a delicate operation, but ensures that the interior of your headlight be a sterile and dry environment, preserving the reflectivity of the projector by many more years. The tightness is the soul of the longevity of the headlight. The original glue, known as butyl, is a thermoplastic elastomer that with the pass of a decade loses its capacity of elastic memory. If you notice that after a pressure wash water enters, the sealing has failed. The use of acid silicone, the one that smells like vinegar, is the most costly error that you can commit. The acetic vapors opaque the chrome of the internal reflector of irreversible form. You must utilize neutral polyurethane silicone or cold butyl cord. If you decide to open the headlight, clean the sealing track with a wooden tool to not scratch the plastic. Apply the new cord of continuous form. Any interruption in the line of silicone is a potential entry point for the humidity. Upon closing, utilize clamps or pressure pliers during at least 4 hours. A perfect seal not only avoids the water, but maintains the internal air pressure stable, allowing that the ventilation channels do their work. This level of protection is what ensures that your investment in time and materials of polishing does not get lost in the first storm of the winter. It is the perimeter armor of your illumination system. Number 2. Cleaning of the internal projector lens without opening the headlight. The number 2 is the master trick of the professional detailers. Often, the external surface of the headlight is perfect, but the lens, the internal glass projector, has a film of white haze. This is due to the gases that the internal plastics release with the heat. How to clean it without ungluing the headlight? With the technique of the magnets. 2 small potent neodymium magnets are utilized. One is wrapped in a fine microfiber moistened with glass cleaner and is introduced by the hole of the bulb. The other magnet, also wrapped in microfiber, is placed by outside of the glass of the headlight. Upon moving the external magnet, the internal magnet moves in mirror, allowing you to clean the frontal face of the lens. It is a technique of fishing that requires patience, but the result is amazing. The light recovers that bluish and sharp brilliance characteristic of the new cars. It is the difference between a headlight that seems clean and one that seems new. This is the best-kept secret of the detailing specialists of Frankfurt. Often, the exterior surface is crystalline, but the headlight is seen tired. If you look closely at the lens of the projector, you will see a whitish haze. This film is the result of the evaporation of plastics internal. To clean it without the risk of opening the headlight, the method of the neodymium magnets is infallible. You must use small but very potent magnets, wrapped in a surgically cut microfiber. The technique requires patience of watchmaker. Introduce the slave magnet through the hole of the bulb, holding it with a fishing line in case it detaches. With the master magnet by outside, guide the slave over the curved surface of the glass lens. The change is dramatic. The light passes from being yellowish and diffuse to having a bluish tint and a laser focus. It is important to use a glass cleaner that does not leave residues, without ammonia. A clean lens can recover up to 30% of the luminous intensity that was lost simply by that fine layer of internal dirt. It is the definitive cataract operation for your car, returning it the penetrating look that it had the day that it out from the dealership. Number 1. The preventive maintenance with polymer waxes. Finally, the number 1 is the habit that will save you from returning to read this book. The restoration of headlights is not something that you should do each year. If it is maintained correctly, it can last all the useful life of the car. The secret is the preventive maintenance with polymer sealants of rapid application. Each time that you wash the car, Using the neutral soap of the previous chapter, apply a rapid wax with UV protection over the headlights. This process takes 30 seconds and adds a layer of sacrifice. The sun will burn the wax before reaching the polycarbonate or the PPF. Do not allow that the bird droppings or the insects stay glued by days, since their acidity crosses any protection. If you follow this discipline, your headlights will maintain themselves crystalline perpetually. You have passed from being a victim of the programmed obsolescence to being the guardian of your own visibility. The success in the life and in the mechanics is not to arrive, but to maintain oneself. The number one is the discipline of the protection. Once that you have reached the optical perfection by means of the German method, the maintenance must be a religion. The polycarbonate is a live material that reacts to the acidity of the insects and to the industrial contaminants. A synthetic polymer wax with broad-spectrum UV blockers acts like a sacrifice skin. Each time that you apply this layer, you are renewing the shield that receives the punishment of the sun in place of your plastic. In Japan and Germany, the enthusiasts utilize spray sealants after each wash. Only it takes 30 seconds per headlight, but it creates a surface tension so high that the rainwater, which often is acidic, slips without leaving lime marks. Never leave that the car dries to the sun with water drops over the headlights. The magnifying glass effect of the drops can burn microscopically the sealant. If you maintain this routine, the process of sanding and polishing will be something that you only did once in the life of the car. You have mastered the art of the conservation, transforming a perishable component in a piece of eternal engineering. The clarity is not a destination, it is a habit. The pride of seeing the road again is a sensation that every driver must experience. It is not about only aesthetics, but of the tranquility of knowing that, when the night closes over the asphalt, you will have the control. The security does not have price, but the clarity is worked with discipline, patience, and the correct methodology. Now you possess the knowledge of the German masters. Use it to illuminate your way and the one of yours.